Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a smaller crew and we'll likely welcome new participants as we continue this conversation. Hope, Janet, Lucy, Phyllis, thank you for joining us today. My name's Alana. I'm the managing director for Farmers Footprint. And the intention for this call was or is really to invite you in to have a seat into our internal team conversations and how we inform our strategy, how we view impact, and how we continue to shape our programs and adjust based on what we find is needed and how we can be most of service to the regenerative movement, both in the US and in a global context. So for today's call, I would like to introduce Mel here. She is our Director of Operations. And yeah, Mel, I'll kick it over to you.
Hi, guys. Hi, everyone on the recording as well. Good to see you today and happy that you're tuning in. Yeah, I'm Mel. You may or may not have emailed with me or seen me on a Zoom or chatted with me on a Zoom because I'm usually here. I'm just not necessarily usually the one spotlighted in the conversation. I'm the director of operations on the team, which means I'm kind of just behind the scenes helping across the board, across our community efforts, storytelling, strategy, HR, kind of a jack of all trades. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here and talk about the topic today, which is really just being present at different events that happen throughout the regenerative movement and how that allows us to keep a pulse on the movement, be informed about the work we're doing, be informed about the storytelling we're doing, and ultimately be reminded of the different stakeholders of the movement. What do they need? I feel like it's often the assumption of how people can best support throughout the movement, but it's really powerful when you can be present and just ask, like, how can we best support you? And just kind of be reaffirmed and make sure that Farmers Footprint is staying on that pulse and staying active in what is happening, what is the best support necessary. So I'm really excited to join this conversation with Alana today and kind of just give a sneak peek at one of our most recent conferences we were present in, which was really, really inspiring, and it really helped inform a lot of what I was just highlighting. And yeah, so Alana, I'll kick it back over to you. I know you wanted to kind of zoom out even further to kick off the conversation, and then we'll just dive right on in.
Sure. Thanks, Mel. Yeah, with that in mind, as Mel said, I'd like to take a few steps back. And just with that reminder, as Mel was saying, a lot of our work is not just a few of us on the screen coming up with all these great ideas and what we think is needed, but always continuing to go back to context, place-based settings, and engage in these conversations directly with the people that are on the ground, whether that is farmers, whether that is organizations, etc., to inform our work, to inform our strategies. So, as all of you are probably aware already, a lot of the work that we do is a lot of the work that we do at Farmers Footprint is really focused on narrative building, and the narrative in food has often been deprioritized or shaped by mass media and corporate interests that very rarely center the farmers and the whatever is best for the people and the planet at the core of that. So something that I wanted to share with all of you today that we came across as a team in one of our living systems team development workshops, and something that I think we often see in a lot of environmental work and social work is that we keep trying to address the symptoms, the symptoms of what is not working, given our current social and economic structures. and we could keep chasing symptoms forever. And and it was really eye-opening for us to see the role that narrative plays in shaping some of those outcomes, and the potential that lies there if we are able to connect the information and the data points we have to shape a different narrative, and one that centers life and land stewards and community at the core of that, and reshaping the narrative of how we view ourselves as humans in relationship with our food, with our agricultural systems, with our communities, and that being a much more direct way to shape change from its core, rather than trying to address all these different symptoms that we might come across and confuse them with the source of something that's broken, something that's not working. So with that in mind, the main intention, or something that's been incredibly valuable for us as a team to be able to have a presence and join some of these in-person conferences, convenings, conversations, has been to deeply understand, like, who are the different stakeholders that are engaging in this movement, that are doing some really incredible work on the ground with other organizations, with other businesses, and how we can come in as storytellers and narrative builders and co-create some of those narratives alongside them to really amplify the work that they're doing, and communicate some of the insights, challenges, opportunities that they themselves are finding, who are at the forefront of a lot of these initiatives, and extend that invitation for consumers, for people who might not be as involved in their day-to-day, to see themselves as stakeholders in the food system, whether that is through their purchasing choices, through growing food in their backyard, partnering with someone or starting a project. But it really does come back to stakeholder alignment, and leveraging the platform that we've built alongside you, our supporters, to amplify the voices of farmers, organizations, projects that are doing some really incredible work. And as Mel mentioned, we'd like to share a very recent example of that. And it was last month, I believe. Time
2 months ago at this point. I
months
know
ago.
time is going crazy at this point. It was in June.
So 2 months ago, yeah, time flies, hey. That we had the honor and opportunity to join the Soil and Climate Alliance conference in Atlanta, and yeah, it was really incredible. So, Mel, I don't know if you'd like to chime in
Yeah,
here and share a little bit more about what that conference was and who the Soil and Climate Alliance is.
100%. Yeah. And even reflecting on just what Alana was saying there about stakeholders, like we use that word a lot in our work, and it is such a a business word, but it is also so important because as a consumer, you are a stakeholder. So like just really breaking down that word, it's just like anyone who touches the food system is a stakeholder in the food system. And so a lot of times we think about stakeholders in the food system as literally just like a farmer, maybe a grocery store, a brand who sells food. But we often don't see all of the invisible stakeholders in the movement. And so when I just wanted to like double down and emphasis on that is like there are so many different stakeholders that we never see. The investors that are investing in businesses, brands, the consumer who's like buying the food, retailers, the like all of the people. Textiles is one that we completely like kind of overlook, like the whole textile industry as a whole, logistics and supply chain, those are all stakeholders. So it's I would argue that every single human being that exists is a stakeholder in the movement. And so it's just trying to like take all of those perspectives and bring it into a shared narrative. So just wanted to like underline that because it's such a buzzword of what is a stakeholder. And it's you, it's me, it's Lana, it's everyone, really. So back to the primary thing of the Soil Climate Alliance. So just to give them a little shout out for a second, because they are such an amazing team, I do recommend checking out their work. So the Soil Climate Alliance is a B2B organization. So just to like add context on that as well, a B2B organization is they are working with other like businesses and brands. So it's really like the stakeholders that they focus on are nonprofits, brands that produce food, think like Seven Sundays, Alexander Family Farms, stuff like that. Um, and farmers, nonprofits, and brands. And then also like business investors and stakeholders from like a very institutional level, insurances, really anyone can be a part of it if they're from the organizational level. And their aim is to bring organizations together and figure out how they can learn from each other. So a lot of the work that they're doing is very impactful, but it's behind the scenes. Last month, we had a collective impact call focused on our sister organization, Project Biome, which is another B2B organization. So Project Biome is working to take global nonprofits that are working on a problem and organize them in a way that they can more effectively work on the problem. Because a lot of times what we're seeing is you actually don't need another organization. A lot of times it's like, oh, we have this problem. If we need to make an organization to fix it. Most of the time, the reality of the situation is there is an organization that is specialized in fixing that one thing, and creating a new one would actually be a redundancy. And it would like be pulling resources and pulling funds, when in reality, if you could just take the organization that's really good at that one thing and help them work on this project, then that's like a way more effective way to address this. Blessed Unrest by Paul Hawken is a great book that talks about this. He talks about all of the nonprofits that exist to fix this problem, but none of the progress that's happening. So these B2B organizations are basically working to connect these different businesses so that they can more effectively address the problems. Where Farmers Footprint comes in is we're a B2C organization. So we're working with them there's these organizations doing all this behind the scenes work. How can we come in to help not only contribute to that work as additional stakeholders and organizations within the movement, but then share that work with other people? And that people can be consumers. A lot of that time it is consumers. So we're trying to basically take really complex topics that are happening behind the scenes at like the organizational or bureaucratic level and shining a light on them so that the average consumer can understand what's going on, how it impacts them, and how they can get involved. We always use this concept of like mobilizing a global audience so that they can act locally. And that's one way of doing that. You don't know how to act unless you know what's happening. And a lot of these businesses, they don't have the time, expertise, or like skill set, expertise, or like the will. Like they don't want to be spending their time communicating that. That is where organizations like Farmers Footprint can come in and really like crack the code there. So
I could add
yeah,
something to that real quick. Because that was a great articulation of that B2B and then B2C work. And with narrative too, I like to see the way that all tides rise when there is a shared narrative that is amplifying a unifying message and then able to mobilize that global community into regional areas of impact, and really extending that invitation to different stakeholders. So as Mel said, our primary audience as Farmers Footprint has been consumers. Yet the more that we engage in some of these conferences, we realize that a lot of the education that we're doing in translating some of the research or impact data that is available, we are also educating other stakeholders. We are educating investors to expand their perspective on what their return on investment could be or should be, besides financial return on investment, and to also consider community development as another area that they're investing in, or ecosystem regeneration, to point to a few examples. For brands as well, we've realized that that's another stakeholder that we are speaking to, and that we engage with either consumers, investors, or brand founders across our different platforms as well. So I'll go more into detail in a little bit, but yeah, I just wanted to chime in there.
100%. Yeah. And honestly, let's just jump into it. So I'll give a little bit more issue. So Soil Climate Alliance, fantastic group. We're talking farmers from all over the place, like talking about literally what is happening. Like, especially right now, there's a lot of change happening in the United States in the policy level and the funding level. So really like getting a on the pulse understanding of how are the funding cuts impacting farmers and what can be done to help them, or how can we plug in and be creative in different ways to support all of these organizations that are navigating a actively very shifting and like bumpy experience. Farming in general is bumpy. It's exceptionally bumpy right now because so much is changing. So that was our primary goals going into there, get a pulse on what's moving. And then two secondary goals that we had were, one, we had the honor to interview a lot of these absolute powerhouses in the regenerative movement and get their unique perspective on various topics. They each were very distinct. So one of them was like Erin Martin, who works out of Fresh RX in Oklahoma, and she does a food as medicine program with people with diabetes. And how can we like prescribe fresh food as a way to treat their diabetes, and getting her perspective on what is the unique challenges there. Another one was Tina Owens, which actually I like didn't get to be there for her interview. Alana, do you want to talk a little bit more about Tina Owens' interview? It was absolutely amazing.
Sure, yeah. And just to take it, I love taking it one step back.
Let's do it.
Um, no, just I'd love to share with everyone joining us here that the conversation, the depth of conversation and information that is exchanged in these conferences is so valuable, and realizing how I mean, everyone there is like is eager to share this information with as many people as possible, so that other brands, other nonprofits, other farmers know that there are all of these resources and possibilities and support networks that are working every day to build these support networks to advance the movement as a whole. And so yeah, that's really where the intention and the idea to not just attend these meetings but document. We recorded the presentations and also the one-on-one interviews that Mel mentioned with people who have dedicated their lives to. I mean, it was really interesting also to see and to meet people who maybe started with a more corporate background and are now applying a lot of what they learned to be in service of the regenerative movement. So as Mel was saying, an example of that, and an interview that, and all of these interviews we shared on LinkedIn. So if you're curious to dive deeper, check them out, listen to some of the conversations that happen, you can head to our LinkedIn and find them there. Tina Owens conversation, incredible woman with such a wealth of knowledge and expertise across a variety of different topics. She serves in the as part of the board of directors for the Non-GMO project. She played a really important role in the founding of the Nutrient Density Alliance too. It serves on multiple boards. And right now, she's really focused on developing more pathways to unlock larger pools of funding for farmers. And she shows that the current actuary data that a lot of the larger investment considers when they think about risk in the context of regenerative agriculture doesn't consider the data of for example, indigenous managed lands and other forms of agroecology, or regenerative practices that exist all around the world that have continued to exist for many thousands of years, and we don't currently consider that as part of the data that shows that the risk to invest in regenerative agriculture is actually a lot smaller than our current metrics show. So this is a specific example of a conversation that happened in, or she was one of the presenters at the Soil and Climate Alliance conference, and then we were able to have a one-on-one interview with her where she touched on these topics, and then we were able to share that recording on our LinkedIn. She shared it, a lot of other people shared it, and we've seen how valuable these concepts are for different people who weren't able to attend the conference. Perhaps they weren't even aware that the conference was happening, and we were really grateful to be able to document that and then share it with other audiences as well.
Yeah, and one thing I want to emphasize on that is it goes beyond simply shares. I know that when you say like we documented it and it was shared, that is in the digital age, that is an incredibly impactful form in the stage that the regenerative movement is at currently. So I think one of the biggest things that I get when we go to these conferences a lot, because again, at Farmers Footprint, we're always just wanting to make sure that we're most effectively supporting the movement. How can we make sure that we are showing up in the most effective way that isn't redundant, that is best using donor funds, that is best accelerating the movement? Like, how can we make sure we are in alignment with our mission? And every time we go to conferences like this, Expo West was another big one. We went a couple years ago. And we can't be at everywhere. I just want to state that. Like, we're not at every conference everywhere because you can't be. There's so many amazing conferences, but every time I'm at conferences like this in person and I'm just absorbing and listening to the different conversations that are happening, there's always the question that is brought up: what is needed to support you? Whether you're asking a brand, a farmer directly. We were at Will Harris's ranch there, which Will Harris is an exceptionally well-known farmer. He is very well house name, I would say, in the United States. And Alexander Dairy was another one of the most well-known dairy brands in the States. The answer is always, we need to share our story. We need more people to understand what is happening and the impact that it has. We need more people to understand that they are a stakeholder in the movement, or that our work is occurring and that they can be a volunteer, or they can be involved. And so when we have the opportunity to be present at these events and learn about what is happening, and then not only just learn about it, but share it with people, we are told time and time again that that is the most supportive way to help this work. It's not, it removes the redundancy of it so that people are aware, like, oh, I don't need to start. We're having a meeting tomorrow. There's an amazing work that's happening in Colorado. They're working in Colorado at a county level to like work on the legislation and the defining of regeneration at a county level within the context of the space and land that they are in at the county level. And they're always asking, like, we need to share this story at the county level so that people know, one, that a lot of times this work has to happen very local and happens very context based. So you can't really apply the principles of one location and it's not going to necessarily work the same in another location. And two, know that like people have agency and have power to create change. Serving as an exemplar of that, which is like the purpose of our Meet a Farmer series, of like the primary, like give farmers an example that they can look towards and a template that they can look towards. And so we just are reminded, like, again, across all of these stakeholders, like, what is the most impactful way that we can help you? More people need to know about the regenerative movement. More people need to know that the regenerative movement impacts them directly. Whether, like we said in the beginning of the conversation, every single person is a stakeholder, whether they know it or not. And so introducing that concept to them and then broadening their horizons of how they can engage in it, because a lot of people think, I mean, I come from the healthcare field. I always was very passionate about the food system, but I was like, I'm not a farmer. I'm not from a farming family. I don't work for a food brand. How can I make any difference here? And so really Farmers Footprint played a role in me being like, oh, I actually have so many different ways that I can support the food system here. And it's simply because I learned awareness precedes change is really like the core thesis of our work, and knowing like having that awareness is the first step into driving global change. And that is like the state that a lot of this, the movement is as a whole, is kind of reaching that critical juncture where enough people are aware and then change can occur. So really just underscoring that, like the impact ripples beyond just simply shares in a way that you can, it's very difficult to measure. It's very difficult to measure the impact of Tina Owen's interview that is then potentially seen by an insurance stakeholder who's then taking that to their COO and having a conversation about their procurement level at an institutional level. That was a lot of really big words, but to tie it into something very concrete that we're actually working on, which is honestly a nice segue. Before I segue in, I just kind of went on a riff there, Alana. Do you want to add anything before I segue into the Nutrient Density Alliance work?
That was great. Yeah, that was such a concise articulation of our work, I'd say. Yeah, no, I'll
Cool. I was like, sometimes I'll just get like, Alana and I always do this. We get in conversations and we're just like riffing about our work and we'll get passionate about it. So want to create space there. And if guys, if you guys have any questions, this is a really small call. So Alana and I are kind of um, doing our song and dance. If you do have a question, please throw it in the chat, raise your hand. Like this can be very informal. So, anyways, kind of segueing in another takeaway from that particular conference, which I'm very, very excited about. So Soil Climate Alliance, one of their sister, it's kind of like a, I won't even consider it a sister. It's like a offshoot under the same entity is the Nutrient Density Alliance. It's led by Mary Purdy. She's fantastic, was a dietitian for 13 years. And their work is really working, again, B2B, to educate people about the impact that soil health has on food health, and then the impact that food health has on human health. Very excited, just kind of doing like a precursor shout out. We will be sharing the conversation, like Mary's whole presentation, which we were able to record, which really takes it like very scientifically, like these are the studies. This is what the science is saying from a nutritional level, that your soil health and the way you farm is directly tied to human health. So we're really excited for the future that we, through our Health and Harmony channel, are going to be sharing Mary's speech and then also very tangible resource guides about this link between human health and soil health for the average consumer, just so that you can better navigate shopping and eating food and all of that. But what I think is very exciting is, in addition to that partnership with the Nutrient Density Alliance, we're having conversations about how we can work with them to build a narrative and create resources to be shared on an institutional level. So we're talking, I'm the person who buys all of the food for a school district. How can we create resources that we can share with that person so that they can better understand how to purchase food at a school district level for the health of the students in the school district? Or maybe if the person is at the procurement level for a hospital. Have you guys ever been to the hospital and you get served like the little pack of Jello and like chicken tenders and French fries? When I worked in the hospital system for a few years, I gained so much weight because I worked the night shift, and I would always eat chicken tenders and French fries because that's all they had available in the cafeteria during the night shift. Crazy. And so how can we get resources that are, what is the ROI on investing in regenerative food for at the hospital level? So we're working with Nutrient Density Alliance and other partners to not only create tangible resources that can shift the like perspective and actions at the consumer level, but also shift the perspective and actions at the institutional level. All deeply rooted in science and deeply rooted in fact, because that's always the pushback you get there. Like, we know in our souls that healthy soil creates healthy food. And for the last couple decades, the research has been catching up to that, so that, because nowadays everything has to be backed by science. I'm a scientist, I fully support that. But we have the research now to really say that. And so working with the Nutrient Dense Alliance to articulate that and build a narrative that is understandable, concise, cuts through the noise and the bureaucracy of all of the things and gets straight to the point and offers a very tangible pathway for these not only consumers but major institutions to directly to support small scale farmers, and then subsequently building the market to support the transition of all farmers is really a piece of the work there.
Mm, yeah, I mean, if I could add to that something, the way that Mel is emphasizing on the research and the data that is available, like it's been, I mean, surprising and not to see firsthand all of the research and the science and the data that is available to to connect the parallels between soil health and nutrient density, between soil health, nutrient density, and flavor. I mean, we've also seen it with our glyphosate campaign, like all the research that is available connecting pesticide exposure to certain diseases. Yet the narratives that are predominant in the space are not based on science, are not based on research, and they have a lot of funding behind them and a lot of really shiny marketing. So at Farmers Footprint, we are a lot of the times collaborating with creatives that once worked for some of these organizations and realize the power of creativity and storytelling and photography, videography, art, sleek design to communicate to people narratives that will shape what they care about, what they prioritize, what they view as important, what they view as real. And we want to be that platform that centers life, farmers, science, indigenous communities at the forefront of these narratives, so that we as a society, starting in the US and over the years, we've expanded into speaking to global audiences. You've perhaps realized that we've started to translate a lot of our pieces to Spanish too, because we realize that I mean, this information is not yet widely available in English, yet alone in other languages. So that's also something that we're prioritizing as an organization. We want to make this information available to people in other countries, in other regions, and really be that megaphone, be that platform that is backed by a team that is just as skilled as a team that's working for these big corporations, but with different intentions and with different values, that we get to share with people like you, with people that we meet at places like the Soil and Climate Alliance conference, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. That was it's so it I always talked up again, I come from the healthcare field. I keep referencing this very loosely. I have a master's in cardiovascular physiology, was gonna work in healthcare for the rest of my life. Found the food system and was like, Zer, and just went straight into the food system. But one thing that I was told over and over and over and over again when I was in school is it takes 10 years for science to make it into the mainstream. And so we're talking about like in the clinical level. If you know that, like a big one is always ice your injury, ice your injury. That's like not good data, but people still do it because that's what you're hearing, that's what you're told, that's what the marketing of this has been told for decades and decades and decades. So trying to shift that shared narrative and educate people on what is the better option. The science is here to support it, but scientists aren't spending their time and they don't have billions of dollars that like big ag and big pharma and all of these very like huge companies have. But we know now that grassroots movements have the potential to change the world. They do change the world. That like individual people have the potential, like they genuinely do. And that's another thing we hear all the time of, as a role of an individual consumer, I feel like we often feel hopeless in the movement. Like we're talking about at the institutional level and then at the consumer level. As consumers, there's so much noise and you feel like you're going up against these titans. It's like a David versus Goliath moment. But again, at these conferences, we're always reminded of like another very businessy term of building markets. Like that's another thing we're always told, like we need to build the market and then it'll fill it. So to break that down in a deeply, deeply simple understanding level, farmers follow where the money flows. They have to. Their whole operation is being a lot of conventional operations. I don't want to make generalities here because that's just not accurate. But a lot of conventional farmers, they're based on a subsidies model of commodity crops, and they cannot switch to a regenerative model because it's risky. They don't know if they will get a return in their investment. The market doesn't exist. So when they say building the markets, that literally just means an average consumer, and I understand access and equity and all of those things. So I'll put the giant asterisks of like, obviously, we need to address those problems as well. But when possible, the average consumer going to the farmer's market and speaking directly with the farmer and purchasing their product or supporting them in the grocery store is quote unquote building a market so that farmers are able to see that that's what people want, that they will purchase those products so that they can transition into creating those projects and know that they're not risking their livelihood in the process. Know that there is a market for them once they get there. That's also a huge role that the consumer plays. And like the big piece of information that we hear coming out of these conferences is that we need storytelling so that we can build the market so that farmers can transition. And that happens at the institutional level of hospitals and like big procurement levels like schools, hospitals, airports is another big one. Like where do we eat a lot of food? Like convention centers, but also at the grassroots level of just in your backyard, in your neighborhood. So
I'd like to share a specific example of what Mel is speaking about, of that journey from storytelling to building markets, into a really tangible example that it happened over conversation with my sister a few weeks ago. And when I was again talking about farmers' footprint, as I so often do, in both my
all the
personal
time,
all the
365, 24/7.
time. And I was sharing with her the importance of consumer education, and consumer education can be in the form of storytelling, and as Mel was saying, webinars or conversations such as this one or some others that we host sometimes, and other partners as well. And she kept asking, like, but how does that shift behavior? How does that shift behavior? And how does that eventually create change and support for farmers? And then we went to the supermarket that was closest to her house, and that happened to be Walmart. And Walmart had an organic section. And I pointed it out, and it was like, this is a perfect example of that. Like, Walmart has an organic section because there are consumers that want to purchase organic products. Walmart, and I could be totally wrong here. I don't know any of the people who work there. I haven't seen their goals or strategic plans or anything. But I can assume, based on what I know, that the main reason why they have an organic section is because there is a market for it, because there are consumers that are willing and wanting to buy organic. So let's say one of our goals through this movement could be that eventually more and more grocery stores that might not initially care to prioritize regenerative products start incorporating them and selling these products on their shelves because people are asking for them, because people are looking for these products. And ultimately, grocery stores such as Walmart, they want to sell their products, and they will sell whatever people want to buy. So that, yeah, once I pointed that out, it really clicked for my sister, and it was like, oh, so yeah, I just wanted to share that really tangible journey from consumer education to building a market to then being able to purchase that product more and more. And I know I use the example of organic, But a lot of we at Farmers Footprint, we really see the regenerative movement as continuing the path that the organic movement started, and really coming together around starting with more life-giving practices that aren't spraying pesticides on our soil, to go beyond that and also consider ecosystem regeneration, community development, and going beyond the organic, but building on those foundations.
Step one. I know, and that brought up to me. I probably have like 5 pictures on my phone. I live in Austin, Texas, and HEB. I don't know if there's any Texas folks here, but HEB is the grocery store of the area, and they're redoing all of the HEBs in Austin. So they're redoing mine, and I just walked in the other day, and they had just redone the produce section. So I had been living there. It's my grocery store for the last 3 years. I'd known what it looked like. It was all closed down, and then I come in the first day of the new section, signs everywhere, locally sourced, like organic food. Like, it's the emphasis is all just on this like very localized food system, especially like supporting local farmers, like supporting Texas farmers. They're using that language because they know that people want it. That's why that language is being used now. Of course, you need there's so many, we have this conversation, there's so many different caveats and little like things here, because of course we don't want to greenwash the movement. We need to make sure that those statements are rooted in like truth, that they're actually doing those things. But that's secondary here. Like, the real key is being in these places, having a pulse on it, and knowing like this is what farmers are needing. There's a whole program of building rice in the Delta. They need to be able to sell their rice that they're regeneratively growing in the Delta, or they're spending all of this time and money and then they don't have anywhere to go. So that's a huge one. I feel like we've kind of went on a tangent there. I'm kind of good on that one. Alana, is there anything else we need to add to that? Oh, I do have one thing I do want to add, but you close that there. Close that loop.
No, I was just about to open up the floor for Q&A, but
Yeah, that's actually perfect. The one thing I wanted to say here is another just like asterisk caveat. In this conversation right now, we're focusing very much on the storytelling arm of our work. And so, like, the power of narrative, the power of awareness to drive change. I do want to highlight that there is a whole second bucket of work that is equally important and necessary, that is action. And that is still also part of the umbrella of like when we're sitting about our work, it's I always say, like, we can't just activate people to be really inspired and then not have anywhere for that outlet to go. It leaves people like motivatedly constipated, like, oh, I'm so excited, I know all these things, but like I don't know what to do with this excitement. So I just want to say the focus on this call today has been very much in this like building connections, building narratives, driving awareness through and then driving change. And we'll have a future collective impact call about all of the work we're doing right now to kind of like reconsider how we can best support change through like funneling people to these B2B organizations, helping consumers identify areas locally and globally where they can get like really start to take action, organizations at a regional level, like getting together in niches. And so I want to just acknowledge that that is a whole other part of the work that we're not diving into today, but please stay tuned because it's something that we're spending just as much time on right now, is how can we mobilize this global audience through storytelling and then activate them and like drive local change through partnership, reducing redundancy. Farmers Footprint isn't the organization that's going to do everything. We don't need to, nor should we be the organization that's doing everything. We want to help connect people to the thousands, I would dare I say millions of organizations across the world that are doing those things as well. So stay tuned more for that as well. It felt very important to emphasize that key aspect of the work.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Mel. And yeah, I mean, with that, I know Mel and I have been sharing a lot of information over the past 45 minutes. And I'd I'd love to just open up the floor and share the mic
Yeah.
if anyone feels called to chime in with questions, ideas, either related to what we shared about on this call or anything else that you've come across in the past few months. Maybe you've seen some of the features that we've launched, whether on social media, on our website, or on LinkedIn. We're constantly sharing stories, information, insights, market research to across different platforms. So yeah, if there's anyone that is feeling called to chime in here, please, we'd love to hear it.
I'm also just no pressure. Also, I know that that's like a lot. I'm gonna put mine and Alana's email in the inbox. We're the team. There's more, obviously, significantly more people doing the work behind, like in the team, but like we're very accessible. Like when Farmers Footprint is doing this work, like when you reach out to Farmers Footprint and with an email, you're getting like honestly probably me. Like it's so we're a small and mighty team, and if you ever have a question or idea, please reach out to us. We're not a big conglomerate where you're going to get there's all these different people. You're going to be connecting directly with us or another team member, Elle, Briar Rose, Sophie. So I just want to also kind of like break down that wall of if you do have a question or anything in the future, and if you're listening to this recording and you have a question or email, you can email us as well. Our general email is info@farmersfootprint.us, and that is monitored by me. So you're gonna get myself or someone else on the team if they're a better fit for your question. But I just put our direct emails in the chat. If there is ever anything that comes up, please don't ever hesitate to reach out to us. We really value feedback from donors, the community, brands, stakeholders, everyone. We're constantly just listening, pivoting, working towards what is the best way to go it, or just like staying the course. Like, yeah. So just want to kind of emphasize that door is always open when needed. And with that, it doesn't sound like anyone has any questions, Alana. So we can probably wrap it a couple minutes early and thank everyone for joining. And if you're listening to the recording, thanks for taking the time and call it a day.
Yeah, sounds good. Again, thank you. Thank you to everyone who joined us for this conversation. Thank you for making this work possible too. That is also a big intention for these calls, just to thank you and all of our supporters who believe in this work, who see it, and to really emphasize how important it is for us that there is that you all know that the door is always open for any questions, ideas, suggestions. We see you as key partners in our work, not only from a financial point, but your perspectives. I mean, if you were initially drawn to support this work and you believe and know how important it is, we'd love to learn more about what drew you in, what was your aha moment, and those types of, oh, excuse me.
God bless you.
Oh, thank you. Excuse me. But yeah, just a reminder of that too. It's deeply human work. This is not this abstract strategy that is relevant to farmers on the field. As Mel was saying, if you eat, you are a stakeholder in the food system, and your opinion matters and your experience matters. So
And you
yeah,
play a role.
the door is always open.
Yep. If you eat, you play a role, just like Alana and I do. This may be our profession, but we literally play a role just as much as every single human being that eats, breathes, drinks water, lives on this earth, calls it home. So, anyways, on that note, thank you for joining. Hope, thank you for your time. It really means the world to us. I know that we host these calls every month. It's usually a small group. I know I recognize, like, Lucy, you come almost every month. Hope, I've seen your name before. Like, it means the world to us. Genuinely, it does. So thank you so much. And I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day.
Amazing. Thank you, Mel. And thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
Alana. Thanks,
Have a great
everyone.
Thursday.